Sometimes the throne is hidden behind betrayal, and no one tells you that. No one warns you that the path God puts you on may lead you straight through rejection, abandonment, injustice before it leads you into purpose. Maybe that's why you've been feeling confused. Because what you're carrying inside feels holy. But what's happening around you feels wrong. You were faithful. You obeyed. You stayed quiet when you could have defended yourself. You served when no one said thank you. And yet, life pressed you. People hurt you. Doors shut. I know that place. And I've learned something that changed everything for me. The betrayal didn't stop the promise, it fulfilled it. That pit wasn't the end of the story. That prison wasn't the end of the road. That silence wasn't God's absence, it was his setup. Joseph didn't go from favored to forgotten for no reason. God was building something deeper in him, and maybe he's doing the same in you. This isn't just a story about a man who became a governor. It's about how God prepares the ones he plans to elevate. It's about what happens when you remain faithful, even when it seems like faithfulness is costing you everything. So stay with me, because in the next few moments, you're going to see the hidden pattern in your process. You're going to discover how God uses betrayal to position you and how he turns faithfulness into favor. Before we begin, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Leave a comment below with your city or country. And if you believe you're ready to receive God's blessings, drop the number 7 in the comments, symbolizing prosperity and blessings. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who could also be blessed. Let's map together where the fire of the Spirit is reaching and bringing prosperity. There's a kind of dream that doesn't make noise when it's born, but it shakes everything around you as it starts to grow, and maybe you've felt that. Maybe God placed something in your spirit, something holy, strange, too big for your surroundings. You can't explain it to everyone. It came quietly, maybe in prayer, maybe in a moment of worship, but now it burns, it aches. And every time you try to share it, someone rolls their eyes or changes the subject. That's what happened with Joseph. He wasn't arrogant. He was awakened. And what he carried inside disturbed those who lived without purpose. The people closest to him couldn't handle the weight of what he hadn't even seen yet. And the same might be happening to you. When God gives you a vision, it's not always for others to understand. It's not their assignment. It's yours. But here's the painful part. Sometimes the first reaction to your God-given dream is rejection. Not because the dream is false, but because it exposes what others have stopped believing for. Joseph's brothers couldn't celebrate what heaven whispered to him because they weren't listening to heaven anymore. And maybe you feel isolated because of what God told you. But let me tell you, isolation doesn't mean disqualification, it means consecration. What is born in the Spirit doesn't need applause, it needs protection. And what God placed inside of you will disturb shallow spaces because it was made for deep ones. You don't have to do anything wrong to be hated. Sometimes just being faithful is enough. When you choose to walk with integrity, when you carry yourself with quiet honor, it stirs something in people who have settled for less. Joseph wasn't envied for wealth or status. He had neither. He was envied because he walked with favor even while wearing a shepherd's robe. And that favor wasn't from man, it came from God. Maybe you've felt that too. You keep your heart pure, your steps steady, your words careful. And still, you've been misunderstood, misjudged, excluded. It's strange how doing the right thing can provoke such discomfort in others. But I've learned that light always exposes shadows, and when your life begins to reflect God's presence, it unsettles those who are hiding from it. Joseph was hated not because he was perfect, but because he was faithful. And his faithfulness made others feel the weight of their compromise. The deeper truth, your commitment to righteousness may cost you relationships. You may find yourself alone, not because you've failed, but because you've chosen not to fall. That hurts. But don't let it break you. God is watching what others ignore. He sees what you're choosing in secret, and what seems like envy from people is often just confirmation that you're walking with purpose. Let them talk, let them walk away, stay faithful. Because the one who called you is still writing your story, and he never abandons those who choose him over everything else. You trusted them, you shared your heart, you believed they were part of your journey, maybe even essential to it. But they weren't, they were only part of your process. Joseph's brothers didn't just doubt him, they sold him. That's betrayal at its deepest, and maybe that word feels too familiar to you. Maybe you've been betrayed not by strangers, but by people you once called family. And the pain that follows is not just emotional, it's spiritual. It shakes your identity, your calling, your trust in people, even your trust in God. If he gave me the dream, why did he allow this? But here's what I've come to understand. Betrayal doesn't cancel God's plan, it clarifies it. The pit doesn't destroy the dream, it only confirms that the dream didn't come from people. It came from God, and what he starts, no betrayal can finish. Joseph's coat was stripped, but his calling remained untouched. He was thrown down, but God was already setting the stage to lift him up. You may feel like something was stolen from you. Like the people who were supposed to support you tried to silence you. But heaven hasn't changed its mind. What they tried to bury was a seed. And that seed is still alive. You're still alive. And what God planted in you can't be stopped by human hands. So yes, you were betrayed, but you were also chosen. And what they meant for evil, God is already turning for your good. Genesis 50:20, you did the right thing. You kept your integrity. You stayed quiet when you could have fought back. You were faithful when no one was watching, and still, life hit you hard. That's the kind of fall that confuses the soul. The kind that makes you look up and whisper, "Why, God?" Joseph wasn't rebellious, he wasn't careless. But he still ended up in a pit, later in a prison. Not because he failed, but because others failed him, and maybe you're there too. Not because you messed up, but because you refused to compromise. And now you're stuck in a space that looks like a punishment, but might actually be the pathway. You see, we've been trained to think that faithfulness always brings quick reward. But Scripture teaches us something different. Before the crown comes the crushing. Before the palace comes the prison. The process doesn't cancel the promise, it prepares you for it. Joseph's character was tested in the silence. His identity refined in the suffering, and that's what God might be doing in you. You haven't been abandoned. You've been hidden, not buried or planted. And what looks like delay is really design. God is doing something in you that requires darkness for now. So hold on, don't let the pain change your posture. Keep walking with honor, because the same God who allowed the pit is already planning the promotion. You don't need a perfect place to be fruitful, you just need God to be with you. Joseph was sold into slavery, dragged into a land that wasn't his, forced to serve in a house that didn't value him, and still he prospered. Genesis 39:2 says, "The Lord was with Joseph, and he became successful." But not in a palace, in Potiphar's house, as a servant. That verse breaks every human expectation, because prosperity doesn't mean luxury. It means God's hand resting on you in impossible places, and maybe that's your season. You're in a job you didn't choose, a place you didn't ask for, a situation that looks more like survival than blessing, but somehow you're still standing. You're still producing, there's peace in your storm, clarity in your confusion, growth in your wilderness. That's not random, that's favor, and it's not something people gave you. It's something God placed on you. Joseph's success wasn't defined by his environment, it was born from his faithfulness. He served well, loved well, worked hard, not because he had to, but because he knew who he belonged to. You can prosper in places that feel beneath you when you understand you're not working for people, you're walking with purpose. Let them underestimate you. let the settings seem small. If God is with you, even in captivity, you're not confined, you're being cultivated. The moment came quietly, no spotlight, no warning. Just her, Potiphar's wife, and an invitation. No one was watching. No one would have known, but Joseph ran. He didn't stay to explain. He didn't flirt with danger. He fled, not because he was weak, but because he feared the Lord. What you do in secret reveals who you really are. And that moment in the shadows, it was a test. Because before God promotes you publicly, He'll test you privately. You may be in a season where no one sees the battles you're fighting, the temptations you resist, the boundaries you uphold. You walk away from things that could ruin you, and no one claps. But heaven sees and heaven keeps record. Joseph passed the test and was thrown into prison anyway. But what looked like a step backward was actually the doorway forward. Because right there, in the place of injustice, God exalted him. Genesis 39-21 says, "But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor. Even in the prison, God made him trusted again, lifted again, honored again." Not because people approved of him, but because God had already chosen him. And the same is true for you. You're not losing ground by walking in obedience. You're gaining favor in a realm you can't see yet. The reward for faithfulness isn't always immediate, but it is inevitable. So keep choosing Him in the dark, because the next door that opens might not be a hallway, it might be a throne. There's a kind of prison that's not built with walls, but with betrayal, with lies, with injustice. And maybe you've been there. Maybe you're still there. Locked in by things you didn't cause, forgotten by those you helped, overlooked by the very people who said they'd remember you. Joseph sat in that prison, not for a day, not for a week, for years, all because he chose integrity. And for a while, it seemed like nothing was changing. But even in chains, he kept interpreting dreams, kept serving others, kept being who God made him to be. Because a faithful heart doesn't depend on recognition, it depends on conviction. And maybe that's the lesson, that your reward isn't delayed, it's being custom built. That your obscurity is not your end, it's your preparation. Joseph's faithfulness in prison qualified him for the palace. Because when Pharaoh finally needed a man who could carry wisdom, excellence, and spiritual insight, there was only one name heaven highlighted. Yours might be next, not because you forced it, but because you were faithful. They can put you in a place meant to break you, but if God is with you, even a prison becomes a platform. Keep walking, keep worshiping, because soon the call will come and everything is about to change. It happened in a moment. After years of silence, Joseph was summoned. Not slowly, not gradually, but instantly. One day he was a prisoner. The next, he was standing before Pharaoh. And he didn't beg for the opportunity. He didn't manipulate it. God opened the door himself, and when heaven opens a door, no man can close it. Revelation 3-7, Joseph interpreted the dream, but what he really did was release heaven's solution into an earthly crisis. And Pharaoh saw what others missed, the hand of God on a man shaped by fire. That's the mystery of divine timing. It feels late, until it arrives. Then you realize it was always perfect. Maybe you're still waiting, still in the shadows, still wondering when it will happen. But I came to remind you, God doesn't forget what He promises, and He never wastes the preparation. What took years in process can shift in one day of favor. When your name is called, you won't have to become something you're not. You'll just step into what you were always becoming. The delay has shaped you. The tears have refined you, and the throne. It's not just a seat of authority. It's the place where faithfulness is crowned, so get ready. Because your moment won't be announced by people. It'll be activated by God. This is what I need you to see. The betrayal didn't win. The pit wasn't the end. The prison didn't cancel the calling. God had the final word. Joseph became governor, not in a land that welcomed him, but in the same land that enslaved him. That's how God writes stories. He lifts you right where they tried to bury you. And when it happens, it's not just for you. It's for everyone connected to your obedience. The famine came, and Joseph wasn't just blessed. He became a blessing. He fed the very people who once threw him away. That's what prosperity looks like when it comes from faithfulness. It's not just about wealth or position, it's about restoration, redemption, purpose fulfilled. And that same God is still doing it. He still raises up the forgotten, still vindicates the betrayed, still honors the faithful. And yes, He will do it for you. The road hasn't been easy. Maybe it's felt unfair. But your tears haven't been wasted, your prayers haven't gone unheard. Every moment of surrender has been seen by heaven. And now, the same God who turned Joseph's pain into power is turning your process into purpose. You were betrayed, you were overlooked, but you were also chosen. And what God started in you, He will finish. You've walked through places you never thought you'd survive. Seasons where the silence felt louder than the promise. Moments when being faithful cost more than giving up ever would. But here's what you need to remember. God doesn't overlook the faithful, He honors them. Maybe not right away, maybe not the way you expected, but always in the right time and always for His purpose. Joseph didn't chase power, he chased purity. He didn't fight for promotion, he stayed true to God in private. And that's what moved heaven, that's what made kings listen. So if you're still in the in-between, still waiting, still serving, still trusting, this is your reminder. God sees it all. He sees the moments you chose obedience over convenience. He sees your tears, your discipline, your quiet yes. And just like Joseph, you will be lifted, not just to be seen, but to be used. If this spoke to you, don't keep it inside. Share in the comments what part stirred your heart. You never know. Your story might be the exact confirmation someone else is praying for right now. And if someone came to your mind while watching this, someone who's been faithful but feels forgotten, send this to them. Let them hear what heaven is whispering. I haven't forgotten you. I'm preparing to reward you, because when God moves on your behalf, He doesn't just restore. He multiplies, and when it's your time, no one will be able to stop what He's about to do.